My name is Jack, I'm 28, and I own luxury properties. I didn't expect to say yes when she called. The question came fast, like it had already been asked somewhere else and I was just the next number on a list. She didn't soften it. She didn't explain it. She said it like she was reading a line she'd rehearsed and didn't want to repeat. I need a husband by tomorrow. There was a pause after that. Not the kind that waits for comfort. The kind that waits for logistics. I was standing in my apartment when she said it. Shoes still on. Jacket folded over one arm because I never hang it right away. The place was quiet in the way it always was, controlled, deliberate, empty without being lonely. I keep it that way. The floors are clean, the furniture spaced farther apart than necessary. Everything has room to exist without touching anything else. I don't remember what I said first. I remember what I didn't say. I didn't ask why. I didn't ask who else she'd called. I didn't ask what husband meant in the next 24 hours. Those questions felt ornamental, like things people asked to feel involved. What came out of my mouth surprised me. Then you'll have to come live at my place. I didn't dress it up. I didn't laugh. I didn't apologize for how blunt it sounded. It was the only condition that made sense. If I was going to be involved in something that urgent, it had to exist where I could see it. Where it couldn't turn into a phone call I'd regret answering. She didn't respond right away. I heard breathing on the other end, steady but shallow, like she was standing instead of sitting. Okay, she said, just that. No gratitude, no relief. Like she'd already accepted this outcome before she asked. She arrived that evening. No. Suitcase. Just a medium-sized bag slung over one shoulder and a smaller one she carried like it mattered more. She stood just inside the doorway after I unlocked it, waiting. Not for permission, exactly, more like confirmation that the space behaved the way she'd imagined. Her name is Lena. She didn't comment on anything. Not the height of the ceilings or the view or the fact that the place smelled faintly like nothing at all. Most people do. They feel the need to label luxury when they're inside it. Like silence makes them nervous. Lena stepped in and moved to the side automatically, keeping the entrance clear. I noticed that before I noticed her face. The way she placed herself so she wouldn't block movement. Like she was already thinking about how long she'd be here. You can take the spare room, I said. She nodded and followed me down the hallway. Her steps were quiet, measured. She walked like someone used to listening for cues. The spare room was exactly that, unused, finished, impersonal. Clean lines. A bed that had never been slept in. Curtains still stiff from lack of handling. I'd always thought of it as an asset rather than a room. Something to point at if needed. She set her bags down neatly, not against the wall, not in the center. Somewhere temporary. Then she looked at the closet and closed it without opening it. I won't need much, she said. I believed her. After that, there wasn't a conversation. We stood there for a moment, two people acknowledging the fact that something had begun without naming what it was. Then she asked where the bathroom was, and I told her, and that was it. I left her alone. That night, I stayed in my usual routine. Not because I needed it, but because I didn't know what else to do. I checked messages, reviewed a floor plan for a property that was being staged, adjusted a lighting note I'd left unresolved earlier in the day. Work always gives me something solid to hold. Buildings don't ask questions. From down the hall, I heard movement. Drawers opening and closing softly. Water running, then stopping. No music, no phone calls. Lena existed quietly, like she was testing the acoustics of the place. I didn't offer dinner. She didn't ask. At some point, the hallway light went off, then hers. I slept lighter than usual. Not because I was anxious, but because the apartment had changed its rhythm. The walls were listening differently. In the morning, I woke to the sound of a door opening and closing. I checked the time. Early, but not rushed. When I came out of my room, Lena was already dressed, shoes on, hair pulled back in a way that suggested habit rather than style. She was standing by the window, not looking out, just standing there like she was orienting herself. There's no rush, I said. She nodded again. I know. She didn't move. I grabbed my keys and paused, waiting to see if she'd say something else. She didn't, so I left. When I came back that afternoon, the apartment felt subtly altered. Not rearranged, nothing had been touched, but occupied. There was a presence in the air. Like the place had been informed it wasn't alone anymore. Lena was in the spare room with the door open. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, shoes off, bag open beside her. She looked up when she heard me, then went back to what she was doing. Organizing, but minimally. Choosing what to keep accessible and what to leave buried. I noticed she'd laid out documents on the bedspread. Stacked, squared. She noticed me noticing and slid them into her bag without comment. I didn't ask Dot that evening. She asked me where she could put her smaller bag. Not because there wasn't space, but because she wanted to know where it wouldn't be in the way. I pointed to a spot near the door, a narrow bench meant for decoration more than use. She placed it carefully and stepped back to check the clearance. That was the first moment something shifted. Not emotionally. Practically Dot, she was already behaving like someone who planned to be careful. Over the next few days, we fell into a quiet pattern. We didn't eat together. We didn't avoid each other either. We crossed paths in the hallway, exchanged brief updates that weren't really updates. She left early most mornings. Sometimes she came back before me, sometimes after. I never asked where she went. She didn't bring anyone over. No friends. No calls that carried emotion through walls. If she spoke on the phone, it was short and contained, voice low, words clipped. One night I came home to find the spare room door closed. Not slammed, not locked. Just closed. It struck me as intentional, like she'd decided something. I paused outside it longer than necessary, then walked away. Later, she knocked on my door. Not tentative, not confident. Just enough pressure to be heard. I won't be here much longer than we discussed. She. Saad? We hadn't discussed a timeline? Okay, I replied. She waited. I could feel it through the silence, waiting for me to ask, to anchor the statement to something firmer. I didn't. She nodded once and left. That was when I realized something had changed again. Not in her. In me. I had expected her urgency to be loud, to demand space. Instead, she had folded herself around the apartment's existing shape, like she was borrowing air. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way she left the bathroom mirror exactly as she found it. The way she never touched the art on the walls, even absent-mindedly. The way she always placed her shoes in the same spot, aligned, toes facing out. These weren't gestures of gratitude. They were gestures of restraint. One evening, I came home later than usual. Lena was in the living room, standing near the window again. The lights were off. The city reflected faintly against the glass, layered and distant. She didn't turn when I entered. She didn't need to. She knew. I'll be out early tomorrow, she said. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Take your time, I replied. She hesitated. Just enough to register. Thank you, she said. It was the first time she'd said it. She went back to her room after that. I stayed where I was, staring at the window, trying to understand why that single word had landed heavier than everything else she'd brought with her. By the end of the week, the apartment no longer felt like something I owned outright. It felt shared, not by agreement, but by adjustment. I moved differently. I left doors open I usually closed. I checked the noise my steps made. Lena didn't take more space, but she had become part of the structure, and that, I realized, was not temporary in the way I'd assumed. I didn't plan to see Lena outside the apartment. It happened the way most real things do, by accident, without ceremony. In a place neither of us had chosen for connection. It was late morning when it first happened. I was cutting across the plaza near one of my properties, the kind of public space designed to feel neutral and expensive at the same time. Stone benches, trimmed trees that didn't offer real shade. People passing through without stopping. I'd been meeting with a contractor who spoke too much and listened too little, and I was replaying the conversation in my head, adjusting. What I should have said. I saw Lena before she saw me. She was standing near the far edge of the plaza, phone in hand, posture straight but rigid. Not waiting in the casual way people wait when they expect someone to show up. This was different. Her weight was balanced, like she was prepared to move quickly in either direction. She wore a jacket I hadn't seen before. Not because it was new, but because it didn't belong to the apartment. It was practical, worn at the cuffs. Something chosen for utility rather than impression. She didn't look lost. She looked contained. I could have kept walking. There was nothing requiring my presence. No obligation. No agreement that extended beyond shared walls. But my steps slowed anyway, not out of curiosity. Out of recognition. I crossed the plaza and stopped a few feet away. I didn't say her name right away. I waited until she noticed me on her own. She did eventually. Her eyes flicked up, registered me, then settled. No surprise. Just recalibration. Hey, she said. It wasn't intimate. It wasn't distant. It was the way you greet someone you didn't expect but aren't upset to see. Didn't know you'd be out here. I replied, I'm usually not, she said. Then, after a pause, I had something to take care of. She didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. We stood there. Two people connected by proximity rather than purpose. Around us, the plaza moved on. Conversations overlapped. Footsteps echoed. Someone laughed too loudly, then apologized for it. Lena shifted her weight and glanced toward a low building across the street. Administrative, unremarkable, the kind of place people went when something needed to be verified or approved. I'll walk you back if you want, I said, gesturing vaguely, not pointing. She considered it. I could see the decision forming, not emotionally but tactically. That's okay, she said. I'm fine. She wasn't dismissing me. She was closing a door gently. I nodded. All right. I turned to leave. Took 2 steps. Jack. She said. I stopped. Thanks for not asking questions, she added. There was no emphasis on the word, no test hidden inside it. Just acknowledgement. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because saying anything felt like it would tip the balance. You haven't given me reason to, I said finally. She nodded once. Then she walked toward the building, not looking back. That should have been the end of it. A brief overlap. A moment filed away as incidental, but it wasn't single quotes T. After that, I started noticing the spaces Lena moved through, not because I followed her, but because they began intersecting with mine. Not deliberately, naturally. She appeared at the edges of places that weren't personal. Places where people performed versions of themselves that didn't require intimacy. A few days later, I saw her again near the transit stop 2 blocks from my office. She was sitting on a bench, hands folded around her bag, eyes fixed on the route map, not reading it, studying it like she was memorizing contingencies. This time, she saw me first. She didn't wave. She didn't look away. She waited. You're far from home? I said. She glanced down the street. Not really. I sat at the other end of the bench, leaving space between us. The kind of space that acknowledged autonomy rather than distance. The bus is late, she added, as if explaining. The pause. They usually are, I said. We sat like that for a while. No phones, no small talk. The city filled in the silence for us. I noticed then that she kept checking the time, not anxiously, but with intent. Like timing mattered more than outcome. You don't have to stay, she said. I know. But you are, yes. That was all. When the bus finally arrived, she stood immediately. No hesitation. No last-minute adjustment. She stepped onto it and took a seat near the door. She didn't look back at me through the window. I watched it pull away. Back at the apartment that night, the air felt different again. Not heavier, more settled. Lena was in the spare room, door open, light on. She was sorting through the documents I'd seen earlier, laying them out on the bed in a precise order. She didn't hide them this time when she noticed me. I leaned against the doorframe but didn't step inside. Everything okay? I asked. She paused, not because she was choosing her words, but because she was deciding whether to speak at all. I'm almost done, she said. Done with what wasn't clear. But the phrase carried weight. Completion. Closure. Something approaching finality. Let me know if you need anything, I replied. She nodded. Then, after a beat, she slid one document out of the stack and folded it carefully, tucking it into her smaller bag. That was the first time I understood that the bag wasn't for convenience. It was for immediacy. The things she couldn't afford. To misplace. Over the next week, our shared existence expanded outward. We didn't plan meals or schedules. We didn't negotiate space. We simply adjusted. I began leaving earlier in the mornings. Not because I had to, but because I noticed she moved more freely when the apartment was empty. She returned later some nights, and I learned the sound of her key in the lock without. Thinking about it, we didn't discuss the arrangement. The word husband never came up again. It existed somewhere outside the apartment, abstract and urgent, but it didn't belong to us here. One evening, I came home to find Lena sitting on the floor near the entryway, back against the wall. Her shoes were off. Her jacket lay beside her. The smaller bag was open in her lap. She looked up when I entered, expression neutral. "Sorry," she said. "I'll move." "You don't need to," I replied. She didn't argue. She closed the bag and set it aside, then stood smoothly, brushing off her hands like the floor hadn't mattered. We stood there closer than usual. "I have an appointment." "Tomorrow," she said. I waited. It might decide a few things. "Do you want company?" She considered it longer this time. "No," she said. "But thank you for asking." That was new. The next day I didn't see her at all. She left before I woke and didn't return until late. When she did, she moved quietly, like she was carrying something fragile but invisible. I was in the living room when she passed through. She stopped when she saw me. "It went fine," she said. "Not good." "Not bad. Fine." "Okay," I replied. She lingered. Her hand rested briefly on the back of the chair nearest her, then dropped. "I might need to." "Make a decision soon," she added. I nodded. "Take the time you need." She looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was measuring the sincerity of the statement rather than the words themselves. "I am," she said. She went to her room and closed the door. That night I sat alone longer than usual, not doing anything in particular. The apartment felt quieter, but not emptier. It felt like something was being held in place. Waiting for movement. By the end of the week, I realized I was factoring Lena into my days without thinking about it. I delayed meetings, adjusted routes. Not because she asked, but because I noticed. When she wasn't there, trust hadn't arrived dramatically. It had settled in through repetition, through restraint, through the shared understanding that neither of us was trying to take more than what was being offered. And in that neutral space, between obligation and choice, I began to understand that whatever this was, it was no longer accidental. She didn't tell me she was leaving, I noticed, because the apartment began undoing itself. Not all at once, not dramatically. Just small absences that registered only if you were paying attention. The spare room door stayed open longer than usual. The light inside, it went unused. The bag near the entryway shifted position, closer to the wall, like it was preparing to be lifted without friction. I didn't ask that had become our way recognizing. Change without interrogating it. One afternoon, I came home earlier than expected and found her sitting on the floor of the spare room. Not unpacking, not packing. Just sitting, legs folded, hands resting loosely in her lap. The room was almost empty now. The bed stripped, the documents gone, the closet untouched. She looked up when I appeared, not startled, just acknowledging. "I'm organizing what's left," she said, to note it wasn't an explanation. It was a statement of fact. I leaned against the doorframe, careful not to cross the threshold. "Do you need more time?" I asked. She considered the question longer than necessary. Not because she didn't know the answer, but because she was deciding how much of it to give me. "No," she said. "I just needed to be quiet." I nodded and stepped back. That evening, she didn't cook. I didn't either. The apartment stayed still, like it was aware something was being concluded and didn't want to interrupt. Later, she left without saying where she was going. She returned close to midnight carrying a folded garment bag. She placed it on the back of a chair instead of hanging it. That placement mattered. It wasn't staying. The next morning, I woke to movement controlled, deliberate. Zippers drawn. Carefully, tape pulled slowly. The sound of cardboard meeting cardboard. By the time I stepped into the hallway, she was already dressed. Jacket on, hair pulled back. Shoes aligned near the door, toes facing outward. The larger bag stood upright. Beside her. The smaller one rested near her feet. "You're ready," I said. She nodded. "I found a place." I waited. "Temporary," she added. "But stable." That word again. Stable. The thing neither of us had been looking for, yet somehow built anyway. "I can help you move," I said. She shook her head. It's not much. It wasn't a refusal. It was a boundary. I reached for my keys anyway. I'll drive. She hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, then nodded. The drive was quiet, not heavy. Intentional. The city moved around us indifferent. To the shift happening inside the car, traffic lights changed. Pedestrians crossed streets. Nothing paused for us. Her new place was smaller, newer, less deliberate in its design. Temporary in the way buildings sometimes are clean lines. No history, no expectations. I pulled to the curb and turned off the engine. She didn't rush to get out. This works, she said more to herself than to me. I believe you, I replied. She opened the door, then paused. You don't have to wait, she said. I know. She stepped out, closed the door gently, and reached for her bags. I watched her walk toward the entrance. She didn't look back. I didn't follow. The apartment felt different that night. Not empty, misaligned, like something had been removed. That the space had quietly adapted to. Days passed. I didn't check in. She didn't either. That wasn't distance. That was respect. A week later, I was at one of my properties, unfinished, between states, bare walls, exposed fixtures. The kind of place that hadn't decided what it was yet. I was reviewing final details when I heard footsteps behind me. She stood there, jacket on, smaller bag over her shoulder. I wasn't sure I'd come, she said. I'm glad you did. She walked through the space slowly, observing without touching, the way she always did. It feels transitional, she said. It is. She nodded. That makes sense. We stood side by side, watching workers arrange temporary seating nearby. Chairs placed, adjusted, moved again. Nothing permanent. Nothing committed. I might be moving again, she said. I didn't respond immediately. Soon? I asked. I looked at her, not searching, not asking for reassurance. I'm not, I said. She turned to me. Not surprised, just attentive. Here? She asked. Here, I replied. In general. She considered that, then nodded. Okay, no promises, no declarations. No urgency. She stayed through the showing. Didn't participate. Didn't withdraw. Just existed in the space like she belonged without needing to claim it. When it was over, she adjusted the strap of her bag. I should go. I know. She paused, then said, Thank you for not making this complicated. I didn't want to make it smaller than it already was, I replied. She smiled, not broadly, not dramatically. Just enough. That mattered, she said. She left. I didn't follow. I didn't stop her, but the next time I adjusted my schedule. Without thinking about it, the next time I chose to remain instead of move on. It wasn't accidental. I wasn't waiting. I was staying open. And for the first time, that felt like a choice.